Good evening, Linda. The details of this case are quite sad. The victim was burned on 40% of his body after two men yelled racial slurs at him. The two men convicted in this case have asked for retrial before, but they've been denied every time. So then they asked their lawyers to file motions so a judge could look at their case again, and this time a judge granted them a hearing. 17 years after he was arrested, Charles Rourke was brought into a Hillsborough County courtroom. Bailiffs brought in his co-defendant, Mark Kohut, a few minutes later. On New Year's Day, 1993, Christopher Wilson, a New Yorker visiting Tampa Bay, was getting a newspaper when he was robbed, kidnapped, then set on fire. A jury found Rourke and Kohut guilty of attempted murder in the first degree. The men argue that charge at the time didn't exist. Kohut took the stand and testified about a memorandum he filed back in 1995 citing Florida case law.
And where did the rest come from?
A federal case called DeSito versus Howie in the Hills.
Kohut says he wanted to read more about Florida law but couldn't because he was locked up out of state.
An affidavit stating under oath that while housed in New Mexico, I didn't have access to the Southern Reporter Series, Southern Digest, Florida Law Weekly, Florida Statutes, Florida Rules of Court, or any other Florida legal reference material.
Kohut's defense attorney then called Rick Levinson to testify and brought up the fact that there was no evidence connecting either man to the crime.
At the end of the day, from a physical evidence standpoint, from an exculpatory standpoint, I don't know how it gets much better for defendants than that.
The hearing is expected to pick up again tomorrow, and as for Judge Sisko's ruling on this, well, there isn't exactly a timeline or a deadline as to when she has to make that decision. So whether the hearing finishes up tomorrow or even next week, it could be some time before we find out what her ruling is. Reporting live in downtown Tampa, Elizabeth Din, ABC Action News.